Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round 7 coverage of the 2014 U.S. Chess Championship taking place in St. Louis. Today was another exciting round with 4 decisive games. I've chosen a game between Ray Robson with the white pieces and Varuzhan Akobian with the black pieces. Let's say a little bit about the two players. Ray Robson became a grandmaster at the age of 14 and at that time was the youngest grandmaster in the U.S., breaking a record set previously by Hikaru Nakamura. He's now 19 years old and good, strong player. He has a FIDE rating of 2631, making him the 8th ranked active chess player in the United States. I don't know if he's played in this championship before, but he's won the U.S. Junior Championship in the past. On the other side of the black pieces is Varuzhan Akobian. He's 30 years old and from Armenia originally, although he came to the U.S. in 2001, so he's been here quite a while. And he also won the U.S. Junior Championship, I think, back in 2003. So we have a clash of two former champions here. Varuzhan has a rating of 26, a FIDE rating I'm giving, by the way, 2643, and is the number 5th ranked player, active player in the U.S. So two strong players. Another thing I wanted to add about Varuzhan is actually he's a lecturer at the St. Louis Chess Club, and you can see his videos online. The St. Louis Chess Club has a YouTube channel. You can go there and see videos that Varuzhan has made if you're interested in his games and his style. Also, Alejandro Ramirez, who's playing this tournament. I mentioned this previously, but he's also a lecturer at the St. Louis Chess Club, and you can go onto their channel and see lectures that he's made as well. They're both interesting and different styles, so depending on what you like, you might prefer one or the other, but they're both interesting. So anyway, Ray with the white pieces kicks off with d4. And after d5, c4, e6, we get the Queen's Gambit declined, the classical Queen's Gambit declined. And just as we saw in the game, I think in the previous video, White plays knight f6. Although this time he plays it not with the idea of transposing, knight f3. This time he plays it not with the idea of transposing via knight c3 into a traditional or classical Queen's Gambit declined, but with another idea of playing g3, which is something I actually mentioned in my Chess Basics series on the Queen's Gambit, that this is a line you can play knight f3 first instead of knight c3, and then play g3 later when black plays knight f6. And you've gotten into a Catalan here. So this is, there are two main choices for black in this position. He can play the open Catalan, which is d takes c4. And afterwards, white does not want to waste a lot of time trying to capture that pawn, but immediately goes for bishop to g2, grabbing this open diagonal, this newly open diagonal, and white will usually play for compensation, although sometimes with a move like knight to e5 has the double purpose of opening up the diagonal for the bishop and attacking the c4 pawn. But a lot of times white will play for a long while without bothering to round out the pawn, just playing for activity and a queenside attack. And if black tries to hold on to the pawn too hard, he gets an awkward pawn structure over on the queen side. But the other main way of playing is known as the closed Catalan, and that's with the move bishop e7. And we get a type of closed Catalan in this game, but Varuzhan throws in the move bishop b4 check, which is a very interesting idea. This is also in the opening book, of course. This is all standard theory. The idea with bishop b4 check is to provoke the move bishop to d2, blocking, and then drop back to bishop e7. So the bishop takes 2 moves to get to the square where it could have gone in 1 move. But what black is arguing is that this bishop on d2 is not well placed there. And in fact, you'll see later on the bishop ends up over on the square b2, which is really where it wants to be, on this diagonal, supporting the d-pawn and waiting for this center to open up and have some pressure against the king side. That's the purpose of that little bishop b4 check, kind of an interesting trick. You see that in other openings as well. So both sides develop normally, castling, and I suppose it's possible to take on c4 at various places, not just at the first opportunity. But black is playing the closed system, and so he has no intention of taking there. He's just setting up a solid triangle and kind of awaiting developments. Black plays knight bd7, developing his pieces. The bishop goes to f4. Now we have another kind of funny dance. This is a good post for the bishop, and black doesn't really want to allow it. But if the bishop stays here, it controls a lot of good squares inside black's camp, and may even support the idea of c5 and bishop to d6, and just getting this kind of thorn in black's side there. So black chases the bishop away immediately with knight h5, and the bishop drops back to c1. And then the knight is not really doing anything here on the rim, and it just goes back to f6. I always think these little dances are funny. And in fact, it is a drawing line here. If white wants to draw, he could just play bishop f4 again. But neither side is playing for a draw. They're both playing for a win. White continues with knight bd2. And now b6, b3, and we get the fianchetto of the bishops. So this is a good point to pause and take stock. This bishop started on c1, it went to d2, went to f4, went back to c1, and now it's on b2. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to get where it could have gone in one move. On the other hand, black has taken 2 moves to get this bishop to where it could have gone in one move. So, but somehow it still seems like white got the worst of that bargain. I think white has to play carefully here not to avoid losing the slight opening advantage. And we'll see that happening pretty quickly here. After rook to c8, black plays rook a to d1, a very natural move, but the engine and the opening book both prefer the move e4. So let's take a look at this. I can actually understand why Ray didn't want to play this, and you'll see if we go down the main line here for a little bit. The main line is c5, e takes d5, e takes d5, and d takes c5, d takes c4, knight takes, rook takes. And if you look at this position, I mean, once again, the engine is giving that slight edge, that opening edge to white, so white has somehow preserved his opening advantage. He's still got these good bishops. Cancel that. I didn't mean to move that. He's still got these good bishops, good posts for his knight, although he does have to worry about this knight getting kicked away at some point, and of course the pin. But I think the main problem from white's point of view is that white would really like to play for a win, and when this position is so open, it's really easy for all the pieces to come into contact with each other and just get exchanged off, and leaving a very drawish kind of position, because the pawn structure itself, if all the pieces are gone, is a completely symmetrical pawn structure, and not much chance for either side to play for a win. So I think Ray was trying to go for something a little more maybe long-lasting, a little more maneuvering game, trying to keep the pieces on and trying to keep the tension. So rook a to d1, but this has a disadvantage. It's not being the strongest move, and black manages to equalize. So once again, queen b1 rather than exchanging, again trying to keep material on the board, keeping the game going. So d takes c4 was played, and knight takes c4. And now bishop to e4, chasing the queen. And already the engine thinks that maybe black has got a little something. So white, by avoiding these trades and trying to keep the game going, has maybe conceded a slight advantage to black here. But the exchanges continue. And this is a good post for the bishop. Can't actually be chased away right away with the move e5, because that's firmly under white's control. And black's queen has to get out from the glare of the rook. Well, wants to get away from the glare of the rook. So queen c7 is played. And now right here, the engine thinks to maintain equality, white should play a move like knight f to e5. Pretty interesting move, allowing the exchange of bishops. And once again, you can understand why white doesn't want to play this. This bishop on g2 is usually the pride of your position in the Catalan. You've got this nice open the diagonal, and you'd like to take advantage of it. The problem is you've got this bishop on e4 that's in your way, and there's just no way, doesn't seem immediately any way to get rid of it. It's kind of a thorn in your side at this point. So Ray tried the move bishop to h3. Let's see, if we look at the computer's suggested line though for a minute, knight f to e5, then just taking, and the exchanges could continue even. Yeah, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, hitting the queen. Queen to c6 check, and f3 or king to g1, and the game is about even, but some force has been removed, and the pawns are still pretty symmetric. There's not even, neither side has the advantage of the bishop pair, so there's just not a lot to look forward to in terms of imbalances in the position to give one a player a chance to play for the win. So once again, you can understand this move bishop h3, getting off that diagonal where the bishop would be traded, allowing the knight to move, and maybe hoping to get some use out of the bishop on this other diagonal. But again, this gives a slight edge to black. So black continues rook ft8. Rook c1 was played, putting the rook opposite the queen again. The queen gets away from the glare of the rook again, but goes to a nice diagonal here behind the bishop. But now knight to g5, taking advantage of the fact that there's no longer this pin. Now the bishop could go all the way in the corner, but what's it doing there? White's bishop guards the g2 square, so there's no threat of a checkmate on g2. So the bishop drops back. And now queen b1 was played. This is the diagonal the queen was on originally, and it's the diagonal it wants to be on. It's very aggressively posted for a kingside attack, potentially. And now black here plays a very interesting move. To understand it, you might want to think about what would happen if he played immediately the move h6. This was not played. But in this position, there's some tactics that are available to white. White can take on e6, and after take and bishop takes check, king has to move. He can grab this bishop, this knight. And now there's two ways to take back. If he takes back with the knight, then he loses the exchange this way. And if he takes back to the bishop, he gives up the square d6. So the knight can hop into d6 and fork the queen and the rook. So both of these lead to interesting play. It's not that it's a slam dunk, but it's complications. And the way black plays, he simply avoids all these complications by playing the move knight f8. So I don't know if I mentioned this in the introduction, but being from Armenia, one of Varuzhan Akobian's chess heroes is the Armenian world champion Tigran Petrosian, who is famous for his cautious play and his solid positional style. And I think this is the kind of move Petrosian would be proud of. The knight comes to f8, and it not only defends this h7 square against mating threats of queen and knight, but also defends this e6 square against those tactics of e6. So a very solid move, just holding on to the position and not allowing white to get anything going. So white plays the move rook f to d1, and now h6 is played, kicking the knight away. So he didn't want the knight there. He wanted to kick it away, but he played this knight f8 move first to prepare that h6 move without allowing any difficulties, any complications from white. So now this the knight really does not have a good square to go to. It drops back to f3. Now the engine is suggesting a tactical line involving bishop takes f6 as possible, but actually it thinks just retreating the knight is the best move anyway. But unfortunately, this loses a pawn. This knight sitting here is protected by a pawn, but after that exchange, the pawn just goes. And this position, well, once again, it's only slightly in favor of black. It's not like black is a whole pawn up. So what white has is white has the bishop pair, which is, by some evaluations, worth about half a pawn. So white has compensation, maybe also because black's pieces are a little bit inactive over here. But it's only a matter of time before black unwinds, and if white's not careful, black is going to just be a pawn up with when white will have nothing to show for it. So it takes some very careful play. This move knight e5 I think is a good start, chasing the queen away. Queen goes to h5. Just staying on the king side here, not wanting to succumb to any sudden attacks, and also hitting the bishop. White throws in the move rook takes c8, and then retreats the bishop. So once again, we get a position that the engine rates as about even, only slightly better for black. So not like black is a whole pawn up, but materially still he is a pawn up. And how is white going to take advantage of this position the advantages he has here. Knight to g4, black continues, of course, threatening on h7, h2. White takes, which I guess is the best move here. Queen takes. And now bishop to e3. Just getting the bishop out from its somewhat exposed position here. Bishop to g5. If black can just trade off all the pieces and go into an endgame of pawn up, I think black would be very happy. So, you know, in a sense, it's easier to play black in these kind of positions. He has the material advantage, and he has a simple plan of just trading things off and going to a winning endgame. White chooses to chase the queen away first. Queen goes to h5, and then plays bishop to d4. Yeah, this bishop to d4. Yeah, so he doesn't want to trade that bishop. That's what I was going to say. This is part of his advantage as the bishop pair, and so he's got to hold on to these guys. And still, the engine is giving only a slight edge to black, so white is still in decent shape here. Rook to d8 was played, though, hitting the bishop. g4, kicking the queen. This maybe is a questionable move, although it's the recommendation of the engine. But later on, you know, sometimes the engines don't quite look deep enough. Later on, these pawns become a bit of a liability. But the queen goes to h4, and now bishop to e5. If we back up a second, let's just say, if I criticize a move, I should suggest an alternative. Instead of g4, the engine has the idea of playing on the queen side with a3 and b4 as an option, or queen to a1, looking at the pawn on g7 there. So there's a couple alternatives rather than playing g4. But like I said, the engine does approve of g4 move. The g4 move, it's its top choice. But in the long run, this structure here may be a problem. So bishop to e5, getting prepared perhaps to chase the queen away, but allowing this trade. Rook takes d1, queen takes d1, bishop to e7. Maybe repositioning the bishop on the square c5. Looks like a good outpost for that bishop. Queen to e2. And bishop to c5. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. So queen to e2 defends the f2 square in advance. Bishop to b8. This, we're getting near the time control here. Actually, we're on move 37, and the first time control is at move 40. So this maybe was not the most accurate move here. Perhaps it's better just to retreat the bishop back to h2, or to play a4. That's the engine's recommendations here. Anyway, so bishop to b8, going after the pawns, but the pawns probably want to come forward anyway, so this is a very solid setup for the pawns. And then queen to f3, getting on this diagonal. And at this point, black's edge, although still not a full pawn, has been slowly increasing. Queen drops back to d8, not doing anything more on the king side. It looks for another way to invade and perhaps cause trouble, hitting the bishop. So the bishop drops back to f4. And now knight g6, getting the piece active. If black can just get all his pieces into the game too, that's or if he can trade off one of the bishops, he can remove the bishop pair advantage and just be a pawn up, basically. So the bishop retreats to g3. Queen comes into d4, invading. Still looking at the f2 pawn, but now also attacking a2. And perhaps with some ideas of getting to the 8th rank here, checking the king. So anyway, a4 saving the pawn. Bishop to d6, setting up a challenge against the bishop. And now this bishop has nowhere to go. There's no way to avoid the trade because the knight is guarding the h4 square. So bishop takes, queen takes. And now we've reached that situation I was talking about earlier, where basically the bishop pair advantage is gone, and black is just simply a pawn up. But it's still instructive. So this should be it's one of those positions that should be winning with good technique, but many players, including myself, would not necessarily win this position. So it's always interesting to watch the grandmaster technique. And there's one really nice moment coming up that I want to point out. So stay tuned. There's some maneuvering here with queen c3. Just trying to find the best squares for the pieces. Knight to f4, attacking the bishop. Bishop drops back to f1. White wants to keep some imbalance in the position. If it gets to be completely identical, just queens and an extra pawn, and black's king safe, then that's pretty hopeless. So he's trying to keep as much force on the board as he can. Queen to d1, pinning the bishop. Now queen to c8 check. King to h7. Queen to c4, hitting the knight. G5, defending the knight. Now queen to e4 check, hitting the king again. King drops back to g8, and queen to e3. What you have to notice about this position is that this pawn is under attack from the knight, and this pawn is under attack from the queen. And White was delivering all those checks as a way to maneuver the queen to this position where it could defend all of those weaknesses. The bishop is pinned, so it can't move. And so there was a series of checks and threats that got the bishop to this position, the queen to this position where it's just holding on, and you think everything is finally safe for White. Perhaps White has a fortress here and can just hold on. And this is a position I was referring to. This is a position where Black plays a quiet but deadly move. So if you want to pause the video and think about this position, it's not a tactical move at all. It's a very positional kind of move. And I think, there's a position it's worth studying. See if you can figure out everything that's going on in just this one position and think of a move or an idea for Black. Because I think there's several moves that work here. It's not any one particular move. But see if you can figure out the idea for Black. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. Black just played the move king to f8. This is a move that basically does nothing. Basically, Black is passing and saying, okay, White, it's your turn to move. What are you going to do? And now look at this. First of all, these pawns can't move. This one's frozen, and this one, if it moves, it just gets taken. These pawns can't move, right? This one is frozen, this one, it just gets taken. If this pawn is moved, then the pawn on h3 hangs. So none of these pawns can move. Okay, the bishop can't move because it is pinned, so not legal. The king can't move because it can't go to this square, the knight controls it, and if it goes to any of these squares, the bishop hangs, so the king can't move. So the only piece that can move in this position without losing material is the queen. And where can the queen go? If the queen goes to this square, well, the knight takes it or the queen takes it. So those are not legal. Oh, well, not good. And if it goes to this square or this square, there is a tactic. Do you see the tactic there? The tactic is just the move knight to e2 check, forking the king and the queen wherever it goes to, if it went to that square or that square, and taking advantage of the pin on the bishop. So this is just a deadly position, and White simply has no move. Any move that he makes loses material. Let's take the red off. So pretty interesting position, I thought, and just that simple move king f8, and it's pretty much game over. I'll go ahead and play through the rest of the moves. Having no move, White just played b4. Giving up a pawn, but as I explained, there was really nothing to be done. And opening up some lines and going for some complications and hoping for the best, that's maybe a plan. b5, where it's supported by the bishop. Knight to d5, attacking the queen. Queen e5, cancel that. Queen to e5, okay, hoping to get in here and deliver some checks. White, there is a lot of force on the board. White still has a queen and a bishop, and if he can activate them, he maybe has some drawing chances with perpetual checks or something. Queen to f4. Of course, Black would be happy to trade queens now that he's 2 pawns up as a certain endgame win. White goes in for the check, and then grabs 1 pawn, but but Black still remains 1 pawn up, and it's also this protected pass pawn, which is very dangerous. So let's see, it's Black's move here, knight to c3. Okay, bishop to g2, trying to activate the bishop. Knight to d1, concentrating fire on the f2 square. f3 was played. Queen to e3 check. The king goes to h1, running away from the check. Knight back to c3, maybe repositioning the knight for perhaps to come in on the square e2. Queen to g7. Yeah, knight to e2 is played. Queen to a1, getting back for the defense along the back row, because there was a queen to g1 checkmate threatened there. Now a4 is played, and it can't be taken because the queen is tied to the back rank, defending against this checkmate threat. H4, g takes h4, g5, and now queen c1 check. And white resigned at this point. Of course, this forces a trade of queens. And white has no hope of queening these pawns, and this pawn is probably unstoppable. It will at least win a piece, win the bishop. So that's how the game ended. Pretty interesting game, a nice positional play by Varuzhan Akobian. I think his idol Tigran Petrosian would be proud of him for this game. So let's take a look at the tournament standings. So Varuzhan won yesterday to tie with Linderman. Linderman today lost against Gadakamsky, and Varuzhan won. So now Varuzhan is in sole possession of first place with 5 points out of 7. Gadakamsky, who beat Linderman today, is second in sole second place with 4.5 out of 7. And there are 4 players tied for third: Josh Friedel, Alexander Linderman, Daniel Naroditsky, and Alexander Onashek in third place, and hoping to make it up in the remaining 4 games of the tournament. So the next day is a rest day. I'll probably do something different. I'm thinking of covering some games from the Women's Championship, which is taking place at the same time in St. Louis. And then after a day's rest, the players come back for the final 4 rounds, and that's when the U.S. champion will be determined in those 4 games, or perhaps in a playoff. So stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed this coverage. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.